I forgot to turn off my audio recording last week, so it's like 3.5 hours long. So I have to actually go in there and like edit it.
In the last hour of it, you could use as like an ASMR recording, like an ASMR.
Yes.
Playback.
Wait,
Is
what's
that how you pronounce?
ASMR?
Is that how you pronounce it? I do ASMR.
Oh, that's okay. I've only heard that. I've never heard ASMR.
I don't know if ASMR is right. You're both probably right.
Because it's an acronym. ASMR is an acronym.
Yeah. So I had to.
We'll just do the little like.
I had to explain.
Soft and gentle whispers.
We're here to talk about science.
We're here to talk about science today. We're going to talk about some plants. This is sad. Oh, wait. Welcome to Scirens ASMR. My name's Tamara Krinsky.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gia Mora.
Taryn O'Neill.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hold it.
That was fun. We need to do a whole ASMR episode. We should. Oh, you fun.
Yeah.
Because we could talk about the like neurology of it. We can go into sensory issues and.
Yeah. Do either of you really like those videos?
So here's the thing.
TK's like, I love them.
No, I've never actually watched the videos, but I have a feeling I might, because so when I get like a facial or a massage and I'm on the table and my eyes are closed, I have always found the sound of just the little sounds of them like opening all the little vials and screwing them back on and like the pressing of the things incredibly relaxing. So when I first heard about ASMR and like just listened to Tony, I was like, is that the same thing? Like, is that it? So I've never listened to a video, but I suspect I might. Have you listened to them or watched them, or do you listen? Do you watch? How does it work?
I guess you just watch. I mean, I watched out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Wait a minute, you curious about something? No. I
know. Yeah, you know, because when you're like, this person has 2 million views on this video for like with their acrylic nails on a water ball, I'm like, you know, part of my brain is saddened by that quantitative fact, and another side is curious. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, some of the people who do it are a little funny and outlandish, so it's sort of, I prefer like my my white noise stations or YouTube, like binaural beats and stuff like that. I really like. But yeah, it's cool when you kind of check out and just listen to it. It's the same as listening to water, I feel like, as well.
Interesting.
Gia, what's the most relaxing sound what do you find to be the most relaxing sound?
It's so specific. It's the sound of my dad playing guitar. That is the sound. What you're talking about, like that binaural beats. In fact, this is the first time in his whole life that he's been unemployed, because his day job is playing in hospital and hospice settings for the ill and actively dying. And he plays at a certain rate with a certain frequency and certain tones that are all meant to continue to calm your brain and help you transition over. And it's also healing for the families who get to be there and have this other experience of someone coming in and providing this care for them.
Okay, so wait, so when he does this, is he, like, how sort of technical and analytical is he being about it? Like, is he aware of the frequencies, or is it something he just sort of does naturally? Is he breaking it down? How does this work?
He's actually certified in this. So there is the actual science and continuing education credits that they have to get in order to do it. So yes, they know that it needs to be, you know, and he even has samples of like, this is 72 beats per minute within this kilowatt in this thing, and da-da-da-da. So he has it all kind of spaced out. But I think in the setting itself, I'm sure he's intuiting whatever needs to be there. And sometimes he doesn't play those things. Sometimes he'll play request or whatever, because that's what people want. So he's just a facilitator for whatever they need in that particular moment.
All right, so what has everybody brought to talk about today? Who wants to jump in first?
Well, I mean, considering that your dad within the realm of music seems to be a polymath, I feel like I should talk about mine.
Go.
So we haven't done a TED Talk yet, and this is a TEDx talk, but it was in 2013. Hold on, let me bring this up. And the speaker is Ella Saltmarsh.
Ella Saltmarsh. That's like a name that I would make up.
Right?
Like she'd be my like rural detective. Hello, this is Ella Saltmarsh. Yeah, we have an assault over here. I've got a dead body. I don't know how long it's been decomposing in the lagoon, but
I know. Can you see it?
Yep. Yeah, blow it up.
Roll down.
And pull down. There you go.
Can you see it?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm not going to play it, so we're just going to link to it. But I am going to talk about it a little bit. It's a very, sort of average TED Talk, just over 15 minutes long. And I found Ella because, and again, 2013. This is August 23rd, 2013. So this is a while ago, but I think it's even more relevant today. I found Ella because, and you both are familiar with this article because I've shared it to you a few times, she wrote about the importance of story in systems change. So she wrote this just incredible piece that I'm actually using in a big thought piece that I'm writing right now, that hopefully by the time you all are seeing this episode, it's done and out in the world, and it's out there, and it's hopefully hopefully taking on a life of its own. But she speaks about, she wrote this incredible article. It's like basically it felt like a PhD thesis on story as web, glue, and magnifying glass, and just how it is imperative and integral to how story is integral to systems change. So I thought that she was some sociologist or some anthropologist. Little do I know, she's a scriptwriter, she's a musician, she's all these different things. And I stumbled across her, and she started this foundation. And I mean, I could go for 5 minutes of all the things that she's done, but she gave this TED Talk 7-ish years ago about the power of polymaths, and how I thought it was so relevant to us because we are polymaths. And what does polymath mean? It means many learnings. And how does that relate to us? Well, anybody who is not sort of has a singular profession, when you introduce yourself and someone's like, what do you do? Who are you? And if you're like, I'm a doctor, that's a monomath, somebody who has a singular job, a singular descriptor. Yet we as Sirens, we as Tamara, Gia, and Taryn, we have multiple descriptors of what we do, of who we are. And she goes into how we do a disservice to ourselves because it is difficult to articulate all the different things that we are, and that we often only tell partial truths about ourselves, depending on who we're speaking to, sort of how to fit into whatever, that person's narrative is, or how we think we can serve that. But that it's a disservice to ourselves to hide the diversity of our talents. But I think, and I know this really resonated with me, that I've always been shy about sort of calling myself a polymath because I thought polymaths have to be geniuses. They are Leonardo da Vinci's, who are, these brilliant artists, and then these brilliant scientists, so there's like sort of this genius level that's associated with that you have to have this expertise that's only achieved through, normally you have expertise achieved through exclusivity. So how on earth can we have expertise if we're generalists, if we have all these different interests? So I've always been reticent to call myself a polymath. But she said and brought to light that we, in this time, in this day and age, need polymaths more than ever, because the issues that we're facing in this day and age, including climate change and now the pandemic, are cross-disciplinary. They need someone's brain who can link the grander narrative between the disparate topics. Let me see what else was really interesting.
Wow.
Because she says, because of the scale and the complexity of the issues today, we need the diversity of the polymaths. Out of the UN Climate Summit in 2013, Nicholas Stern, who's like this, he's Lord Nicholas Stern, he said, if we're going to have any chance of avoiding catastrophic climate change, we have to have greater ambitions, cooperation, and collaboration. And polymaths are these magnets for collaboration. As we know, we all love to connect between, different silos. So we as Sirens, we love to connect between the entertainment industry and the science community, you know. And Gia, you have music, and Tamara, you have hosting, and I don't know what else I have. I have the directing now. You know, but she says polymaths can bring different worlds together to make change happen.
That's so interesting, because I know, I think you and I actually may have tweeted out the same piece by Ed Yong recently. And by the time that
Shout out Ed Yong.
Yeah, by the time you all are watching this, it'll have been a couple of weeks ago. But it was the piece wherein he talks about why is it so difficult to sort of understand all the different pieces of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the fact that it's not just solvable by one kind of scientist or one kind of public policy person, that we need people with a whole bunch of different areas of expertise to come together and share their knowledge, to collaborate, as you just said, because there's so many different points of view and it's such a massive problem, much in the way as climate change is as well. There's so many different pieces of it. You can't just have a solution from one area of knowledge or expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it's really inspiring to give people permission to not put themselves in a box, that the box doesn't have to exist anymore. She talks about being an autodidact and being addicted to learning, and that resonated for all of us, you know, I know. And so she calls it the ABCs, where, you know, A is autodidact, where you're addicted to learning. B is having balance in your life. And C is seeing like a goat, which is because goats' eyes are set on their head very wide apart. So they have near 360 perception. And so it's really just a, you know, metaphor for sort of seeing the big picture and seeing, you know, a larger viewpoint. And in this piece that I've written, you know, I talk about sort of the deeper focus, the wider lens. And I think that we need to, you know, change our viewpoint to be able to look at these larger problems that we're facing as this interconnected global society, because these stories, these lone heroes, like what Ed talks about, they can't save us anymore. And we have these stories that proliferate in the 20th century of the lone hero, the Joseph Campbellian hero, you know, saving the world. But no, he doesn't. He just basically saves himself and conquers his own inner demons. And then the 3X structure is over. The quest journey's over, but we're just starting. We need to have our own unique quest journeys, and then we need to like collectively go about solving these larger problems. So I think her speech and her Stanford talk, or Stanford paper, which I will link to as well, is I think an incredible flashlight to the future.
Do you think that the title of polymath is more difficult for women to embrace than men? I mean, even the lone geniuses. Well, I only say that because, you know, like we cite Da Vinci, we cite all these men as this thing, and I feel like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just only because of my personal experience. I had a casting director when I was 19 tell me, you need to stop saying that you play piano and you do all of this, because literally nobody thinks you're any good at any of them. Yeah,
okay, me too. So it's so interesting that you brought that up, because last night I was reading and I was trying to clear out my inbox, and Bonnie Gillespie, who is an incredible friend to actors and has, you know, dispenses all kind of actor wisdom, had sent out one of her newsletters. And it was very specifically about what we do when we're in touch with who we are, and then we go through our lives and people keep trying to squash us down and put us in boxes, and we become more comfortable with this sort of reduced idea of who we are as we keep taking away all those different hyphenates, all those different descriptors of who we are. And that becomes more comfortable, and ultimately we accept that because it's easier. But then there's always sort of a sense of inauthenticity as we get further and further away from the different pieces that make us who we are. And it's only as we fight back towards that, to embrace all of those different pieces, that we really become more comfortable with ourselves. So it was this very interesting seesaw of uncomfortability and comfortability, and that in the performers that we often gravitate towards, those are the performers who have said, nope, you know, this is who I am. I'm putting it all out there, and who have kind of found their way back out of that box.
And yet when you start out in LA, the first thing you learn is what? How to brand yourself.
Be a box. Because nobody wants a bag. They want a brown paper box. So stop trying to be a bag.
And there's
I had an acting coach say, "Why, when they want a chocolate chip cookie, why are you pouring spaghetti sauce on it?" Apparently, my acting is spaghetti sauce. I didn't realize that.
Woof. I'm sure it's, you know, delizio.
delicioso,
Assolutamente.
Arrabbiata.
It's spicy, yeah.
Spicy, angry.
She is the only one out of us who actually speaks Italian.
I did take 2 semesters in college.
You did? Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's why you get to whip it out every summer, right? And get to practice again.
I do.
Your French and your Italian.
I do.
Nice.
Not this summer.
No.
No.
That's just us. We get to practice our Italian. Speaking of Italian, I'll post this as a separate thing, but there's an awesome MIT online class you can take, and it's called Learn to Speak Italian with your mouth open, with your mouth full. And it's Italian cooking and language at the same time. So all the vocabulary has to do with whatever you're making in the class. It's pretty great. That's what I did a couple years ago.
As Tina Fey would say, I want to go to there.
I want to go to there.
That sounds fun. I think, I'm going to send that to my husband. I think he would like that. He's the chef in the house.
Well, that's perfect. That's so cool. Well,
Anyway.
speaking of food, shall we transition to the next piece?
Yeah.
Yum. Yum.
All right.
Nom nom.
So this is, I have a bunch of little notes I want to share with you because I was trying to figure out, like, what is the actual science that I'm talking about here?
I feel like I haven't been talking about science. Sorry.
No, but I think that's the beautiful thing. Is like science is all these things. Just because we're not talking about numbers or research data or something, because we're talking about critical thinking and sustainability and climate change. And these are all issues that are not only verifiable and measurable by science, but solvable by science too. One of the biggest problems that we have is trash. The average person produces 4.5 pounds of trash per day, which is a little mind-blowing. And I really got thinking about it after Taryn asked the question whether those compostable bags that she puts her dog poo in actually dissolve. So I went in search of some scientific answers, and I want to share with you this article from Live Science.
I feel like the answer to this is either going to make Taryn really happy or feel really
despondent.
Send you into like a guilt spiral.
Every time I take my dog out, I'm like, Gah!
Oh no.
Yeah. I know it's disappointing because the problem is there's not systems, speaking of systems, there are not systems in place to support these changes. So let me tell you a little bit about these biodegradable cups. They're made mostly of PLAs. Those are polylactic acids, and they come from corn. So they're not made from fossil fuels, and that's generally one of the arguments that says, well, even if it goes into a landfill, at least it's not a petrochemical product. But that doesn't matter if what we're talking about is mounds of trash that we can't deal with. So that doesn't solve the actual problem. It's not really, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And composting requires oxygen, and that's what breaks down organic materials. Landfills are airtight, so 91% of municipal waste ends up in landfills. The compost that is composted, of the 9% of actual municipal waste that gets composted, 91% of that is lawn trimmings, and the other 9% is food. And these cups, by law, are mostly not allowed into those facilities. So that's what's absolutely bonkers. So even if you could compost it, where your actual composting happens can't happen because they don't offer those services. So then, you know, the thing is, what happens if you then put it in the landfill? Well, if it's made of this corn, and it can take, you know, about 12 weeks to decompose. In other studies, they have ones that decompose as quickly as a week. So if you leave it in the landfill, and it's made of the corn, polylactic acid, when it does begin to decompose, it off-gasses methane, which is 30 times more potent a greenhouse gas than CO2. So we end up shooting ourselves in the foot a lot of the time, accidentally. And it's because there are not systems in place to do that. It's a very long way off, too, to actually be able to recycle PLA products. They can't reuse them or anything. So they say if you can't compost it, you have to put it in a landfill. And yes, it's not a petrochemical, but it doesn't really do it. So that got me really interested in some other things that I will share with you on the screen, because these are other alternatives to plastic packaging for food in particular. So this,
down the rabbit hole we go.
These are food packaging made from SCOBY, like the top of your kombucha. And they dry it with fructose and vitamins, and it builds up the cellulose wall, and it makes this little sheet of paper. And when you touch it, it feels a lot like leather. I first stumbled on this kind of idea with a fashion designer who was making vegan leather from all of these materials. But the biggest problem with all of them is that they can't get wet. They will dissolve, basically. So they're great for things like, if I can scroll down here, they can be colored naturally, which is fun with different, foods making the colors. And they're great for things like packaging dry goods and whatnot. So those are all made from one kind of bioplastic, which is the SCOBY. But then there's 10 different projects. I'll just scroll through a couple of them. These are 3D printed ones from, I don't remember which one this one was. So this one is made from algae. This is a water bottle made from algae, which I thought was interesting because it holds water.
Wait, now, and it doesn't dissolve?
This is made from sea kelp, I think. Seaweed, that's what it was. This furniture.
Seaweed. Ooh, look at those. I know people are making a lot of plastic shoes and plastic made shoes now.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
Everlane.
Yep. And this is the one from Reebok. And it's 75% bio-based with corn.
Those are
Lego has these
cute.
bioplastic pieces.
That's important.
Yeah, I'd read
Super important.
Yeah.
This is not vegan. It's beetle exoskeletons. I'm sure it's got great protein. These are crab shells, again, not vegan. These are interesting. These are little moldable plastic pieces that you basically put in warm water, and you can put them like around the edge of your table to make a baby bumper kind of thing, or anything you'd need to sort of mold and make, or a hook or other sorts of things where you could use it. That's what this will do. This is another cool thing. This is all bioplastic too, and they built it to show the structure of the underneath, what would be the smaller structure in the material itself. That's a German team. Anyways, I'll put another video on there to this guy, Rob Greenfield, and he's an artist and activist in New York who walked around in New York City wearing all of the trash that he consumed in a month. And it is pretty staggering. And he said he accepted everything he was handed, whether it was a flyer or a fan or a straw or a cozy or whatever. And he collected it and walked around with it. And it really just makes you realize what 4.5 pounds a day looks like and means in a very tangible way.
Wow.
my brain is just going like, whoa.
Well,
Cool.
look, the exciting thing though is that there are clearly a lot of minds who are working to come up with creative ways to find our way out of the plastic hellhole we currently live in.
And it's another cross-sectionality between art design and science. I love what Neri Oxum is doing over at MIT. Maybe I'll link to, in this episode, I'll link to her sort of manifesto. But there's this there's amazing graph of the cyclical design. It goes from science to design to engineering to I forget what the fourth one was, but it's like the Krebs cycle, but from like a creative energy. It's really fascinating. I mean, and she's just friggin' fascinating to begin with. I mean, she heads up the bio design lab at MIT Media Lab. But yeah, I think that, again, cross-sectionality of these incredible minds.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of bio design
and a brilliant mind, go ahead.
I'm going there, but we have been talking about plant-based solutions and plant-based developments, so that's a good segue into mine. I wanted to talk today about glowing plants and mushrooms. Woohoo! We've all been quarantining for way too long right now. I'm not going in the direction of Burning Man. I am going in the direction of bioluminescence.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, so beautiful.
Okay, so what you are looking at right now are some glowing tobacco plants. And This piece is from Science Alert. It was written by Michelle Starr. There are a couple pieces out there. So this is about an experiment in bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is when you basically get living things to grow and to give off light through some of the chemical processes that they're going through. There are animals that are bioluminescent, but really this doesn't really exist in plants on its own. So over the years, there have been different experiments to try to make this happen. So this particular experiment was done by they found something in fungi, in a particular mushroom, that they were able to infuse into the tobacco plants and create this bioluminescent tobacco plant. So back in 2017, there was a lot of news from this experiment that had been done at MIT, where they were able to create basically a watercress desk lamp. They took watercress. It gave off light for, about 4 hours or so. It was very dim light. It was about 1/1000th of what is considered, a healthy reading light. But you could dimly read a page. And
they're reading Paradise Lost in that book, which I see in that picture, which is
I know,
hilarious.
right?
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know. Oh, very appropriate for now. And even way back in 2014, I know, right? There was this idea of glowing trees. This was actually, this was something, this wasn't done at South by Southwest, but the person who did this presented at South by Southwest. And the whole idea was, to take this sort of future concept. What if trees could actually replace street lamps? And we didn't have to actually use electricity for lighting.
Wow.
We had a purely natural source of lighting. So these are all ideas that are extrapolated out into the future. But of course, they always start with a seed, no pun intended, of research. And you have to go back to what could actually make this realistic. So I wrote down some notes here. The thing about this particular development is that instead of crossing it with something from another organism, which is what happened in that original watercress experiment, they used fireflies, what makes fireflies glow. Instead here, they were actually able to take something that occurs in mushrooms and activate something that called I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I've been looking on the internet. I don't know if it's caffeic or caffeic acid, no relation to caffeine, which naturally occurs in many, many plants. And because it has to do with the structure of plants and lignins and stuff like that. And anyway, it interacts to give off luciferins, which result in, when they result in energy being released, when they interact with an enzyme, you get light. And so the thing that was different about this than using nanoparticles, which have been used in the past, or crossing it with something from another organism like a firefly, is that it's something that naturally occurs in plants, which means that overall it's less toxic to the plants. And this particular experiment resulted in a much brighter glow than that 1/1000th. So it's a next step. It's not something, the plant is not ready for prime time lighting. Do not expect to walk into a store and buy your desk lamp plant anytime soon. But it's the next step in the research. And that's kind of what science is all about, right? Or at least one of the pieces of science. It's about taking the seeds that someone else has planted and then continuing to experiment, coming up with new hypotheses, trying new and different ways to do things. And gradually we move towards solutions. So I was captivated by it. I think the other reason, this is the other thing I wanted to show. I think the other reason that it caught my attention was because right now in California, we are experiencing bioluminescence on the beaches. It's something that during the day looks like a red tide, which in many places indicates unhealthy organisms. But in all the pieces I've read, what's happening on our beaches right now, it's not unhealthy. Surfers, if you were allowed to go surfing, you could decide if you wanted to go into the beach or not, into the water or not. But at night, you can see right here, you get these amazing glowing waves. So I've been watching a lot of those videos because I find them calming. I don't know if it's the sound in ASMR or just the images of the glowing waves, but glowing plants caught my attention. And plus, I just thought they were pretty.
Oh, yeah.
That GIF of the tobacco plant opening and closing was ASMR for my eyes. I was just like, hi.
That's so cool.
That's really cool. Now I love this image of bioluminescent trees in the future.
Yeah.
And sort of, and how would you be able to, is it just almost like solar lights that, naturally come on once light has reduced to a certain level?
So one of the things that it talks about in some of the stuff that I read, and I'm going to see if I can find my note on it, is I mentioned luciferin. So and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sure I'm not. So luciferase is the enzyme that acts on the luciferin to create the chemical reaction that then gives off light in the plant. So one of the things that they've talked about is having a luciferin inhibitor, which would stop that reaction. And so depending on what that inhibitor was, depending on the stimuli needed, that could sort of trigger a plant.
That's your on-off switch.
On and off. Yeah.
Huh.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So imagine just walking outside at night and there's your glowing tree, and
we all live in Avatar now.
Right.
Exactly.
This is definitely going in something that I'm writing, like
Absolutely.
100%. And it's a beautiful image. Like, what a beautiful merging of technology, innovation, and nature. Like,
yeah.
I love it.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
My goal is to bring you peaceful, hopeful images of the future. So you can sit outside under your, tree lamp and open up your package of cookies that are wrapped in algae-based plastic and contemplate being a polymath.
Yeah. Or act on being a polymath.
I love it.
I kind of want like an ABC t-shirt of the things you were talking about before.
I know. I was like, see, and she's like, see like a goat. And I was like, what?
I just want that t-shirt. See,
right,
like a goat.
Like a goat. And only some will get it, but those who do, you're friends for life.
That's right.
Well, and I also love the fact that like goat has this other meaning in like Twitter land of greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So it's almost a play on words if you're talking about being a multi-hyphenate or a polymath. And
Let's make the t-shirt. Let's make the t-shirt and we'll sell it to help raise funds for, we should come up with. Actually, maybe we can ask people who watch this if there are any really cool, innovative, maybe science art charities or, charities for COVID relief that we ultimately, if we ever fundraise or sell merchandise, that we could, give our proceeds towards, or partial proceeds towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, because I think for all of us, climate change is right up there as a really important issue, that intersection of science and the arts, and certainly right now, COVID and research. So, so yeah, if you've got a favorite charity, a place that is doing good work, please let us know. Even just to raise, if we can't raise funds at the moment, at the very least we can raise awareness. Let's end with a lightning round. What do you have to recommend this week?
I think I said it before, but I actually finally watched it. It's the production of the Scottish play that the Folger Theatre did, directed by Teller, as in Penn and Teller, and Aaron Posner, who directs theater all over the United States, and he is an incredible director. It is such a good production. Highly recommend.
Awesome. I'm listening to the new season of Flash Forward podcast, which Tamara has many connections on and who has been on as a voice actor. I was hat tipped to it by Ed Youngs. This past weekend he listed, which will be like in a month in the future. I don't know. Time. What is time now? But there was a pandemic special that they did in 2018, probably in concert with maybe Bill Gates's TED Talk. But it's a really fascinating episode. So I listened to that one, and Ed was interviewed on it, and a number of other experts. And so I strongly suggest listening to that, because it'll give some interesting perspectives to our current situation. And then also the most recent season just launched, and there was a really fascinating episode on Y2K and how we need to look back at Y2K as a huge success, because people look at it as a joke, as this thing that was overblown, that nothing happened, but everything could have happened, that they spent $300 million to prevent, that may be a wrong number, maybe more than that, to avert many, many issues that could have gone wrong, that could have destabilized our military, destabilized our banking system. And so I think it looks to the past, and then it looks to the future, to the year 2038, when we have another potential Y2K that's going to happen because of our 32-bit numerical system used in computers.
Oh, wow.
So I highly recommend it. And I just think that Rose is my jam.
Yeah, Rose,
right now.
I have to give a huge shout out to Rose Evelis. She's fantastic. And Rose and Ed and I actually all met. The way I ended up involved in the podcast is we all met at this science communication conference back in 2012, I want to say. So it's kind of amazing to see how things develop over time, and you never know how you're going to end up working with people.
That's so cool.
Yeah. My shout out for this week is a book that I just finished. I don't know if it's inverting in there.
Charles Yu, yeah.
Yeah, it's Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. And it is set in LA. We actually read it for a book club that I'm part of. And it's a story about a guy who has always wanted to be sort of the top dog kung fu guy, his words, not mine, in a show that shoots at this Chinese restaurant in Chinatown in LA. The interesting thing about it, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it in here, is that the entire story is written in screenplay format. There are chunks that are, very long. It's not all dialogue, but and it even even down to using Courier font, which is the traditional font that you use for screenplays. What was so interesting as we talked about it in book club was that the entire thing could be metaphorical. The entire thing might actually be happening. We had a lot of discussions as to whether or not there was an actual show being shot, or this was just the point of view and the lens through which this main character views life. And I love the fact that we disagreed about it, because books that, leave room for interpretation. And also just being an Angelino now, kind of having a different point of view on the city, I thought was important. And also, quite frankly, there has been a lot of really nasty, racist, prejudicial things that are coming out against the Asian American community, and I wanted to expand my horizons and be supportive, because I'm kind of sickened by some of the stuff that's happened. So I will get off my social justice warrior high horse, but for me right now is the perfect time to read this book.
That's
amazing.
Awesome. I can't wait now I got to check that one out. That's cool.
All right, that's all we got.
That's all we got.
Peace out.
We just, just a few little things. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your days. Love you all.
See you all.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.